So you are a 21-year-old multi-millionaire. You're an e-com entrepreneur. You've generated over 8 figures through drop shipping, through mentorship, agency work. That's phenomenal. You're only 21.
Yeah, that's the title of it.
Right. So, okay. So I want to go back and understand. You have all of this stuff. You're buying watches. I saw your new Rolex.
Yeah, the Tiffany OP.
Yeah, it's stunning. Oh yeah, Tiffany OP. No, it's stunning, and you have all this stuff, but like you're 21.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the journey of how you got here, because from what I understand, you dropped out of school at 16.
Yeah, so I actually dropped out. I have like my middle school diploma. I'll always joke around with people about. It's the technical like final years of my life was 9th grade. That was like the final year I left school.
Yeah.
That 9th grade year, completed it, then into sophomore year, I knew it wasn't for me.
Okay.
And I really didn't know what I would do. I think a lot of guys in my situation, they love to say they dropped out and instantly like figured shit out. It just wasn't the case for me. Those first 2 years like really were like kind of lost for me, and I was figuring stuff out, but I just was trying like everything. I knew it was possible. I saw, and we were like, I think a lot of people when they initially start, they see the light through something. And I saw it. My older brother, he was already working, hustling. And I was like, why can't I do it? And that's 16 to 18, right when I left school. I was a little party boy in like sophomore year. So they loved that I was leaving, because I was getting a lot of people in my grade like influenced to party and stuff. So they kind of just like kicked me out. And I remember driving home at a Honda Civic. I bought myself, and I drove home at 16. I was like, I'm done. And I never stepped foot in school again. And that was like kind of the start.
You know what's so funny is it's always the people that drop out of school were a nuisance in school. It sounds like you were influencing people to party.
I was bad.
There you go. So it's always those people that end up doing so much better than everyone else. But you said the first 2 years you struggled.
Yeah.
And then you made your first millionaire at like 17, 18?
17.
Okay, 17. So how did you do that? Talk me through it. What were you doing, and how did you struggle? Like, what did you fail at?
Yeah, so those first like 2 years, I'd say it's the first like clump of time in my life of kind of like real adult life, where I was out of school, and I didn't mean to do it. I didn't really do it for like the flex of it. I wasn't posting about it, but I was just alone. I was like isolated. I didn't talk to people from my school because they're in sophomore, junior, and senior year. So we're just living a bit of different lives. And I dabbled in a few different business models. I tried like the whole stock trading, penny stocks with Ricky Gutierrez. I remember trying Forex. And what really initially was like the first business was drop shipping, although it didn't work. Like I started a summer store in summer of 2018. It's called Summer Necessities, selling like pool floaties, failed. Sunglasses store called Sunglasses for Less, failed. And then my third business, I won't say the name because I don't want you guys to find the info on me, but it was a store selling AirPods, and I was selling them as Apple EarPods, as like kind of replica AirPods, and they just crushed. It wasn't even difficult. And at 17, I was like, I think my record month was like 65 grand. I was pushing 5-10 grand days some days. And I pretty much went like a year straight. And I was just pushing that like, 40, 60 grand a month range. And around a year and a half in, it was working really well for me. I was making money until I realized like you can't sell counterfeit products.
Right.
And Apple, knock. They gave me a nice knock in the door. And a lawyer, I remember, it wasn't a lawyer, I guess it was a server or something. He served me my papers. Their fuck up was I was a minor. And since I was 17, they couldn't really do much. And they just made me shut it down, and I was good. But I know guys who got Supreme Patties. One guy, he got some major consequences from it. And they go and they ask for revenue. They say, if you did 5 million, we want X amount in damages.
So Apple tried to sue you when you were 17 years old?
They threatened to pursue litigation if I didn't shut down the site.
Let's just get into that in case it's not clear. You were selling AirPods, but replica AirPods.
Yeah, I was selling, so they were black, white, red, and
but everybody does that.
Cream.
I see that everywhere.
Yeah, the thing people don't see is that when you do like slightly sketchy shit, it might work for short term, but long term you're fucked.
Okay.
And that was my thing. Like, so it was cool for me because I was like, I needed that. At 17, like that's 16 to 17, I kind of was just figuring shit out. And then it was around a year after dropping out. I dropped out right when I turned 16, pretty much. This is early 2019. That's when shit was hitting. And I posted on Instagram yesterday a screenshot of me like freaking out, like super young, of like a $1,500 day, like 2 cent cost per click. So it was a different world back then. But yeah, that like 2019 year is where drop shipping really solidified for me. And it just kind of like really gave me the footing of it. It never really clicked, but I think it just slowly faded to I realized like, okay, making millions of dollars online isn't hard. And Yeah, it
But
wasn't.
how did you discover that you could make millions online? Because the reality is you only know what you see, right? And I'm sure your parents weren't making money
Yeah.
online, drop shipping,
They-
and you're so young. So how did you know that drop shipping was something that you could do?
I think for me, it was always just how I'm going to do it, not if it was possible. And I
Right.
think drop shipping was the first avenue where I was like, okay, this is like a way to do it. You know, it was super simple in the beginning where I just knew if I ran ads, I spent $100, I'd make back like 400 in revenue. And I was like pretty fucking dumb. Like I won't sit here and be like I was a young genius. I wasn't. I was pretty stupid. I was juuling all day. Like I'm 17. I was ripping McDonald's. I was a big McDonald's guy when I was younger. And it just goes to show in my eyes, like if I had 17 figured it out and I was like really beginner basic, dude, there weren't the resources there are now online, but it kind of just clicked. And I remember literally it was just, I had like probably 10 grand to my name when I first started. And it was as simple as like increasing ad spend, revenue went up with it. I was just fulfilling the orders. It's actually when I hired my now assistant, Choli.
Mm-hmm.
She's been with me for like 5 years now. I hired her to fulfill orders and do customer support. And yeah, I just almost like 10x and 100x'd it. Went from like 10K to $1 million.
So how much were you making at 17, 18?
Dude, I mean, that end of that year, I think I took an actual like tax gain of like 240 grand profit.
Okay.
And I did about $1 million revenue. That 2019, early 2020.
You know what really blows my mind? The fact that there's this world of 16 to 23-year-olds
I know.
who are making millions online, whether it's through drop shipping, crypto. And it just blows my mind. I mean, you mentioned your older brother, but he's not that much older. He's what?
3 years older.
He's 3 years older than
Yeah.
you.
You just got to get exposed to it.
Right.
That was like, I think one of my biggest advantages when I was young is I got a bit lucky with being exposed to him.
Mm-hmm.
But even now, like the Elon Musks in the world and stuff like that, I always say it, and some people laugh at it, but I think it's really true. It's not that crazy what they did.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who's under 27 right now, when Musk was under 27, he was in a worse spot. He was accumulating debt.
Mm-hmm.
So if you dropped out of college, you're already at least, even if you're broke, you have zero. At least you're not in debt.
Right.
And to think that Musk at 27 was like, I think it was 400 grand in debt. And he was able to 3 years later, PayPal 100 million. So you just realize that it really isn't difficult. And I think it's more so realizing it's possible. And that's where in my eyes, knowledge consumption, I wish I started sooner with that and starting to realize, holy shit, what's possible. And even now, like, you know, we'll get to it, but this year, and I just got an offer from my agency for over 7 figures. It's crazy.
Do you think there's any drawbacks to making that much money at such a young age?
I've talked about it before. I mean, that 16 to 18 for me was sad. Like, it wasn't like fun. I was making money. I got my first Rolex like at 17, but it wasn't normal. And I didn't realize that at the time. And I think it started hitting me when I was like 19, 2020, I moved out officially. All my friends left my hometown. I was like, this is depressing. Let me leave.
Yeah, they were at college.
Yeah, college,
university.
normal stuff. And I was like, fuck it, let me get a beach apartment.
Okay.
Rented a 5K a month apartment on the beach.
In Florida.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in Sunny Isles. And this was a great move too because it exposed me to some really successful people.
For
I
sure.
bought a Tesla at this time too, a nice like performance Tesla. But where it really was hitting me was that I was just super alone. And I think it built a really good introverted side to myself, or even now to this day. I mean, you know, Kier, he's been with me for a while. I can go a month straight just not leaving my place.
Really?
Yeah. I don't do much.
You don't leave ever?
Yeah. I mean,
What about groceries? Like,
I have a chef. I
have
have
a chef.
assistant, house cleaners every day. I mean, all this stuff in my life now, like the basic stuff's automated. Really, the only time I leave is maybe to go to like a dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Big dating guy. I go out and go on a lot of dates.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it was always just really alone. And I think it's a skill I've now built. I could be alone, no problem. I travel alone. I went to Europe for a month alone.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I'm a big believer in isolation is one of the biggest keys to just hyper focus. And it almost happened naturally, that 16 to 18.
Well, I also think that not a lot of people are on that grind. You know, they're not on the hustle, especially at such a young age. You know, everybody just wants to party and have fun and drink and smoke or whatever it is. And so naturally that will distract you.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's another thing when you're exposed to the right people. I hate that. I think it's a little cheesy, the whole like your net work is your net worth. I don't like those cheesy lines, but
it's true though.
It's
Yeah.
true. I don't like how it's put.
Uh-huh.
I believe that who you expose yourself to on a consistent basis is like who you're going to be influenced by. You know,
Right.
Every human, whether you believe it or not, has their own self-interest in their mind. So every human wants what they need the most. And I think the only time it kind of goes away is like family, mother, son, times like that where,
Yeah.
you know, the mother will really die for the kid. But for me, I'm doing everything to make my life better. even my best friend, it's the same thing. He wants his good life. I want my good life. And when you realize that if you're around the wrong people, they're just going to influence you towards their life. And if their life's shitty, you're going to be influenced towards a shitty life. Like if someone can't afford to spend, 15 grand to charter a jet, and they like want to go fly domestic, like it's not ideal. And it starts shrinking your perspective, I think, a little bit. But I sat down at a dinner, and this is when it really hit me. The guy's worth like 130 mil. He just exited a huge company. And I chatted with this guy for 3 hours in Monaco. And where it really hit me was that he just thought so big. And he's not that old. And I fucking love that. I love the idea of just like insane optimism and realization to what's possible. And yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that's led to so much success for me. I really know like how much is possible. It's just insane.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about being here in Miami. You're surrounded by hustlers, hustle culture. I mean, I know you spend a lot of time by yourself, but do you feel that hustle culture? Do you feel that pressure to constantly, get up, work, hit the ice bath, like whatever it is, just to be on top of your grind all the time? You have chefs, so they're making like the best type of foods for you. I'm
weird with it. I look at productivity as inversing it. I inverse productivity and look at what isn't productivity. For me, the idea of being productive is having a high output, and having a high output for me is getting a lot of work done to hopefully make a lot of money. So for me, I don't look at it as much as how can I get a lot done. I more look at it as what are all the things that would keep me from working, and how the fuck do I get that out of my life? Right now, it's quite insane how like systemized my life is.
So you remove anything which distracts you, basically.
I have a dog walker, $1,500 a month I pay her. She walks my dog 3 times a day.
Wow.
So it's to the extent if she has access to my unit, I could literally be asleep, and she'll come in, my dog will run down, go with her. It just, in my eyes, I don't look at it as the whole like look at your hourly and then replace it if it's not worth your time. I just look at it as like you don't want to do low ROI stuff. And it's made it that now I just have such a high output.
Yeah.
I always tell my team and I tell people around me, it's so hard for me not to win. And that's why it's almost just inevitable for me. My mom and dad, I think they don't fully understand it. I'm very confident I'll buy a plane next year. I'm very confident in that. And people, they might look at it and laugh now. Think like, oh, he probably has a few $1 million to his name. But me having 25, 30 million out of next year is very doable. And then I buy a little plane, get my name on it.
What kind of plane do you want out of interest?
Nothing great. Probably a Phantom 300. It's like 4 or 5 mil.
Yeah. Well, you make it, okay, so you bring up a really interesting topic about your parents not understanding it. And I think that is one of the most relatable things to any entrepreneur, but particularly any young entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So to what extent have your parents understood what you're doing, and also how much pressure have you had from them? You dropped out of school, you obviously didn't go to university, college, so how they sort of let you do your own thing at such a young age? So
super young, like right when I left school, the deal was with my mom specifically. My dad's always been in the picture, and I love my family to death, thank God. Just my parents are divorced, so I wasn't around my dad as much as a kid, and it was more so a deal with my mom. And I told her I want to go out and start working, and I'll make 50 grand net in 6 months. If I don't, I said I'll go back to school. And like, if you think about it, and I'm not an advocate for dropping out, maybe college, but high school gets a little sketchy. But in my head, and I stand behind this, it would have just been 6 months behind. If it failed, I would have like, okay, go back to school. I'm a semester back. I didn't really care to have to go back a year. And it didn't have to happen, thankfully. I think I ended it like right around, must have been like 44, 45K.
Okay.
And she never even brought it up. She saw my bank account.
So you were 5K short?
Yeah, she saw my bank account till I had at least like a few $100 grand. Then I remember kicking her off because she was getting a bit stressed. But for my mom, my dad, and it really hit me last year in June. I had like kind of like, I wouldn't say a depressed moment. I don't really believe in depression as much as I was just sad. And it was because I didn't really have anyone to talk to. I still think most people around me don't really know what I'm dealing with. And I was talking to my mom, and she really was like worried for me. Because at this point, this is when I started really cracking like 6-figure months. And I was doing 100, 200, 300K months. And with that comes some craziness, between tax planning, the numbers, when you start looking out a year, $4 or $5 million in a year, it just starts getting stressful. And she was still aware of it. And that's when I decided to completely just cut off my mom and my dad on a financial basis, where I just didn't look at them ever on advice for financial stuff. Because I realized that them and most people just don't see it. They don't get it. This year I'll probably clear like $5-6 million top line. And it's 10 times what they've done in a year. So it's just hard. And it's one of the drawbacks, I think, is when you start doing really crazy things, there's less and less people that you can kind of like relate to. Mm-hmm. And ultimately friends in my eyes are people that you relate to. So you lose friends. Yeah, you do. You said that your parents didn't really understand what you were dealing with. What were you dealing with? I think that I lost some purpose. And even like I think I'm at a similar spot because I think when you're initially chasing like $1 million liquid, I think is a really big number. I think 100K liquid, it's like not that crazy, but a million liquids, like you feel powerful.
Right.
It's just very hard. I mean, you're borderline set. If you have a decent business, or in my case, 3 that are all producing good income, and also you have a ton of money in the bank, I think you almost have an epiphany. And for me, that's what happened, where I was chasing financial security, I think, for so long in abundance. And then mid last year, I remember thinking like, is this what it's all about? And I don't believe in the guys, money doesn't matter. Money isn't happiness. I'm like, cool. Like, yeah, you can have happiness and you can have money, like have both. But I do definitely believe in there's a bigger picture purpose in chasing. And that's when I really started liking the idea of building with people. I really started thinking team building, but yeah, people just don't get it. Now my biggest thing is I like really being intelligent. So my whole thing is knowledge consumption. Last year, I've probably read like 20 books.
Wow.
And I'm really trying to get to the point I could read a book a week. That's like, it's very hard for me. I have very bad focus issues. So reading, I normally have to get out after like 20, 30 pages. But I mean, anyone watching this, like the easiest how to get rich 101 is like read a lot of books. It's so hard to not get really rich if you do that. It really is. It's like difficult.
Do you have a favorite book?
Yeah. I would say Who Not How. I read that like a month ago. I think that book, when you have more than a few 100K to your name and a team, reading that book like 10x is your output, because you realize that hard work and hustle, that whole hustle culture we were mentioning, that isn't the goal. Everyone glorifies like, let me be the hardest worker. Let me wake up at 3 a.m. I was this guy a year ago. That's what I was preaching. And then you realize like, fuck, if I just have a person on my team who's just as intelligent as me, maybe even more intelligent, 10 years older than me. My oldest guy on my team is now like 34. If someone who has 13 years of life on me is also waking up at 3 a.m., I could just not wake up at 3 a.m. And then that same output's coming from him. And then what can I do with my time now? And that's where I realized that the true factor for me is I don't even need to do anything. All I need to do is make really good decisions and have a really good brain on my shoulders. And that's all I'm doing now. Yeah. Keo even sees with me almost every day. Probably now 80% of my calendar is just open. And 5 months ago, my shit was fucking crazy. I was fucking working so hard. And it was really when it synced in that it's not like the hustle culture that works. It's really removing all the bullshit. And then you just have time to do what you know you need to do.
And you said that you came to Florida with, I think it was $40,000 or something in the bank.
Yeah.
So we understand now, okay, you made a lot of money with drop shipping when you were 17, but how did you make all of this that you have? Like, you came to Florida with $40,000.
I'll give you.
How long ago was that, by the way? Like
so
2-3 years ago?
I moved I was already in Florida. I moved an hour south.
Oh, Sunny Isles.
Yeah. So I moved to Sunny Isles, and that was like my first big decision. I probably had like 6-7 months of rent when I went there. I remember paying taxes. The first year I paid taxes, I got fucked. I didn't understand it.
How much did you pay in taxes?
I want to say it was like 80 grand, but the issue was that I didn't like.
80 grand in taxes.
And what the fucked up part was that I think it was 240,000 in like AGI, adjusted gross income, which means like what you took home after all expenses. The issue is that I took home a lot less. Like there was stuff that I missed deducting. It pretty much, I overpaid in taxes a ton, which is fine.
You didn't get the money back?
Shout out the IRS. No, I mean, I didn't have a good CPA till like last year. Either or. I'm not too big on looking back and dwelling on shit. But as that first year, taxes fucked me, so I didn't have that much money. And mind you, Apple just also shut me down. So moving out in that 18, when I was 18, I did $1 million in revenue. But after everything, after my Rolex, cars, all this shit, I only had probably 50, 60 grand. And it was moving to Sunny Isles. I started opening up my brain a bit, but that's where I started now doing higher level things. That's when I got into TikTok. That was a huge fucking thing for me, because courses like that year and a half, I did probably $1 million,
What were you doing on TikTok?
Posting the whole like, young.
Were you selling?
Young, yeah. I was like the young kid with the Tesla and a beach house. I was like, I feel like I pioneered the whole like drop shipping TikTok space. There was no one doing it.
And what were you selling on TikTok?
So initially I was just posting videos. My mom was the one who said like, you have a cool story, post a TikTok.
Right.
And I did, and it did really well. I was like, damn, this is sick. Like I think it was like 60,000 views. My first TikTok's still out there. Now I have like 1.7 or 8 mil. And yeah, I remember I had 100K quite quick and had guys reaching out to like pay me. And I was like, what the fuck? This is weird. And I'm still like trying to figure out drop shipping. This is also, I have a YouTube video. I started YouTube. I started a new store and I'm posting that. So I'm like drop shipping and doing TikTok. And that's when I realized like, holy shit, I'm not going to have these guys pay me to help them. I'm going to have them pay me for a course. And I built out a course. It was so shit in the beginning. It was $300, but I was selling them like water. I think one day I had it tracked because my assistant was in my DMs and I had another friend who I was paying. So it was me, my assistant, and that friend. And I think one day we had 11,000 DMs inbound. And you could imagine, it's just, I was this young, super naive kid, and every 15 to 17-year-old like loved me because they're like, holy shit, he's like doing, like he has the Tesla. I had it wrapped in a purple. And it was that 2020 year I really like did well on TikTok. I got to like 400K, and drop shipping also picked up pretty well. I ran like a few pump and dump stores, probably netted like 150, 200K from drop shipping. But the coaching and course is what really hit. Issue I didn't realize is that was not sustainable, as it just wasn't like fun to go and publicize a course. That's why like 2021 is the year I really think I started like adulting. I moved to a building in Brickell, Panorama, great building. Got a super high floor. I felt like a beast, 81st floor. And it was that year I think I really like grew up a lot. I started my first real brand. It's a fitness brand. A lot of you guys might have seen it. But that brand now has done well over 7 figures. And that's like a brand I eventually want to sell. I got an offer for like 250K I turned down just because I really do want to build it. The one thing I don't want is to be the guy who stopped drop shipping. I really don't need to do it anymore. I think my agency right now is my highest lever thing, but I do it just for the fun of it. It really is enjoyable for me.
Well, I hear a lot of people say that drop shipping's dead. Is it dead?
Saturation isn't real. That's one thing I've realized, and it's actually
it is real. Saturation.
No, I mean saturation. I think saturation is real, but the idea of it's not like an on-off button of like, okay, the light switch is on, saturation's there. It doesn't work. It's almost like saturation's a level, and the more saturated something is, the harder it will be. But I think also the proof of concept that it works. You know, you could say being a real estate agent saturated, but people make a ton of money doing it. And I think when something is saturated, it's a really green light to be like, do this. But you also, if there's a lot of people doing it, you have to look for a way to kind of cut the line. I don't know about you guys. Like I always give the analogy of at an amusement park, there's 1,000 people waiting in a line. You could finesse around it. You can go to the front, pay the guy $20, and you just skip the whole line. 1,000 other people are waiting. So that's how I look at most business models. No matter how saturated it is, you have to pursue things you have a competitive edge at. And that's even like how I live life. Yeah. But that 2021, moving to Brickell, and I've been here 3 years, although I've changed spots a few times, that was where I started my main brand, started my agency, and my coaching courses. I kind of got rid of courses and went into the mentorship world. I got a lot more selective, still taking on a good amount of people. I've gotten very, very selective nowadays. But that's where things started getting good, because then I was actually the person helping people. I didn't really use a course as much. And yeah, that idea of coaching, TikTok, agency, and drop shipping was just a lethal fucking combo to get me to 7 figures.
Do you think anyone can do what you've done?
Yeah, I don't think I'm special in any way. I think if anything, there's a lot of fuck ups I made. Like if you just watch every YouTube video I have now, you would probably do exactly what I did way faster.
What's the biggest mistake that you've done?
I think that I did things too fast. I think that speed is important, but there were certain things that I didn't need to do fast that I did, and it led to it going bad.
Like what?
I did an NFT to my student base, and I did an NFT. I remember thinking we would do like $250,000. And it was like, fine, I would do like 6 months of coaching with it, had a good deliverable around it, and we did it. I remember I think it did 35 grand, and I was like, fuck. I just spent like 50 grand on this thing, hired a whole team, all this shit. We lost money, and now I have 35 grand of people that are expecting shit. And I was in this bad epiphany. I was like, fuck this. I just refunded them all. I'm like, I'm not doing this. Yeah. And I remember reflecting off that, and that was one of the lower points. That was mid of like 2022. And that was when I had this like saddish moment where I was like, damn, like what am I doing? Like what is life right now? Because I was probably taking in like 50, 100 people and mentoring a month. My dropshipping brand took off in 2021. I did 400 grand in Q4 of that year, all of 2022. I mean, even now we're getting into supplements now. So things were going well. Like I was 20 at the time. I have a very solid amount of money. I'm living in this like dream apartment. I impulsed 4 months later, I bought the Lambo, but I had a great Tesla. And I think people would think that's like the picturesque life. But in my head, I was going through it. And that's when I think I really did some deep diving in like what I want long term. And that's when I fell in love with learning. And that's why like now I'm a big learner. I love the idea. I'm going to Daytona up north, literally solo this weekend. Actually, I'm going to look at some real estate there. But bigger picture, I literally am probably just going to like sit on the beach with like 2 books and just try to like fucking speed read both of them that day. That's like my hype now. I love that.
So going too fast has been like the biggest mistake.
100%.
What's the biggest lesson that you've learned and the best thing that you've done?
I think I had a guy last night. I had one friend from my hometown. He really wanted to see my apartment. I haven't seen him like 6 months, so I let him come. And he brought two friends, actually two guys. And they all came, and these guys were like in awe. They're like freaking the fuck out. They're like, dude, I don't understand this place. I mean, to give you reference, one of them has a business. I think he said he's done like 20K in the last year.
Ooh,
so it's like, it's night and day. And he asked me when he was leaving, I drove them to a club. I didn't want to go, but I drove them there because I felt bad. And I bring them in the Urus, we're driving. They're like freaking out. I'm gutting it. And he said to me, all my friends got out, but he waited. And I admired this. I thought it was interesting. It was one of those like, let me help this guy moments. And he came up to my door and he said like, what's one piece of advice you'd give me? And I'm like, what's your business? He helps people and he does like soccer training. It's trippy. But I said, just like find people who've done really well doing what you do and fucking copy them.
Yeah.
It really, I think getting to 7 and 8 figures is not trying to reinvent the wheel. And then right when you're neck and neck towards your competitors, that's where you go and you're like, okay, what's one unique advantage? And doing that 10 times and then you just beat them. So that's my thing. The biggest thing now I use, and a huge fucking lesson, is I copy the shit out of people when I see they're working. If I see someone's going and running a really good marketing campaign, TikTok Shop's a great example. Everyone's talking about TikTok Shop. If you're in e-com, do TikTok Shop. It's like so simple, yet a lot of people sit out there and they're burning 4 hours a day, like, I don't know, going to lunches and shit. Starting a TikTok Shop store, it's so easy, yet so many people won't do it.
Yeah.
And I'll always use the example of water. Every human on this planet knows to drink a lot of water, yet there's tons of people who don't. And it's like such a basic thing that people don't do. And it makes you realize, okay, people are just retarded. People are literally just not thinking what's best for them. And people make a lot of bad decisions. And I love that. It's just such an easy way to win. So I look at it as just making a lot of good decisions. And the easiest way to know what good decisions to make is to look at people who are beating you, because they made more good decisions.
Well, that's the thing, because people always sort of shy away from copying. But if it works,
fuck yeah,
there's no point reinventing the wheel. Just keep doing it.
That's now, especially because I'm taking on a lot less people into my mentorship. We're charging a lot more. And I have a pretty like severe interview process. People come in, I'll literally tell them like the first step, I give them a store, I build them a site. And then I say, okay, let's find your top 5 competitors. And what the fuck are we going to copy from them?
Yeah.
Like, oh, is it illegal? Is it this? Is that? I'm like, dude, worry about making a fucking $1 million, then worry about getting sued. It's a way better like combo. Don't worry about getting sued now.
Yeah. Your Apple example is
it's a fucking perfect point.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love the idea of that. It just works. I mean, even like every single successful person ever, and you'll look, most of them didn't reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
You know, the guys who did, credit to them, like almost always they hit huge. The Apple, the Amazon, even the Tesla. But you realize it's not necessary, I think, when you initially start. I think it's more so the game to passing like the 7 to 8 and 9 figures. I think getting to 7, super easy to not reinvent the wheel. That 7 to 8 jump and 8 to 9, I think, is where you really have to go and be different.
One thing which I've learned, and I know you have a big opinion on this, is the idea of investing in yourself with luxury items. A lot of people say, oh, you know, just because you have all this money, like, doesn't mean you have to, you know, buy watches and cars. But I saw you driving the other day in your Lambo. Yeah. Like I said, you got a new watch. So why are you spending money, and why is that an investment rather than just, you know, something to be flashy and show off about? Yeah,
I mean, one of the biggest flaws, and I've actually told this, I love my mother to death. I love her. I'm going to get her a beach house. But I told this to her actually because I thought it was very interesting. And I always, whenever I talk to people, I always try to keep the conversation very intriguing. I like talking about deep shit. It's just me. And I was telling her, I was like, you know, one real flaw that when I'm older and have kids, I'm going to make sure I don't do is I'm going to make sure I don't think small.
Right.
And I think that when I was young, and I told her in a very polite way, I think that I didn't really realize what's possible. And I think for me specifically, my family, we grew up in a bit of a scarcity mindset. We got wrecked in like both of the market crashes, 01 and 08. So it just hurt my family. And it made them in a scarcity mindset. They would think like secure, be safe. Like, okay, if we have like 100K, like try to minimize spending. Dude, for me, like I'm so like disgustingly confident in myself. I could genuinely go, and this is why I'm going to end up probably buying a plane. I really want to buy a Bugatti next year too. I'm probably going to pick, but either or, it's not scary when you realize how cheap it is. This apartment's 20 grand. People are like, oh, like it's a lot of money. Then you realize like how hard is it to make an extra 20 grand? And I could like confidently say it is not. I just turned down a fucking 140 grand sponsorship deal from Auto DS, probably more. It was 140 base, like 12K a month plus they were giving me 30% of affiliate revenue.
Right.
I turned it down because one, past it not doing anything for me that money, just the idea of me closing that deal, it was 2 hours. I took one meeting with them, one follow-up meeting, 140 grand. And then you might say like, oh, I'm just starting, I can't make money that quick. It's like, who made that rule? No one made that rule that you can't make money quick. It's just something that's taught to you, and you have to look at what subconscious things are in your brain that are limiting you. And for me, it was the scarcity mindset. So I'm really hardcore now on not being afraid to spend money. Especially, I don't look at things that have a cost. I look at like almost the expense of having it.
Right.
So a lot of people will look at partying as just like, hey, I have to spend like 10 grand at a club. I just spent eight and a half grand at a club the other night. And some people look at the initial cost. That's one fuck up. But the next fuck up is like the next day you're burned. Yeah. So however much you're going to make that day is fucked. And then maybe you had an opportunity that next day that you missed out on, and that was a $500,000 deal in 10 years. So I just look at everything from the long-term effect of it now. And that's when you realize like cars, fucking watches, really spending money on anything, it's not that scary. Especially watches. These things are like fucking cheap. You just pay sales tax. Yeah. I can go flip this thing for 25 grand tomorrow.
Well, that's the thing actually. And I only realized this about watches recently, that it's not, I always thought if you're buying an expensive watch, then you're giving away the money.
No.
But it's not, it's literally an investment. Yeah. Like you could just get the money back, depending on the watch, obviously.
You're up and down 10%. On the good watches, you're normally up or down 10%. And I always, you know what I fucking love? I love when I see really rich people buying like clothes, really expensive clothes, buying like dumb shit, dude. When I see them chartering a lot of planes, that hypes me up because I'm like, wow, this person's gonna lose. Or at least this is someone I could fucking like spit on, grind to dust. It's just so easy to beat a person like that. It literally fires me the fuck up. And that's one thing I took from like Ovens and Alex Becker. Those are two guys I look up to a ton. Both of them are worth close to 9 figures. I know Becker's worth over 9 figures. And they love that. They just, all these little competitive edges. They look at Kobe Bryant. Him and Jordan are super great examples where they weren't just born super fucking good at basketball. No, they got really good. They devoted their life to it. They were obviously genetically advantaged towards it, being like big, tall, etc. But all in all, you realize that it's just like, wow, there's two identically tall, identically weight. In regards to like Jordan has an identical replica that just wasn't the greatest basketball player of all time. He isn't worth billions of dollars. And that's my thing now. Whenever I'm spending money, like I don't give a fuck about all this little shit because that's not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about like what decision am I going to make tomorrow that's going to lead to a 7% growth in my agency that's going to make us an extra 200 grand next year. And that's the thing now where I think I've gotten to the point where just the small like normal money doesn't matter too much to me.
Yeah. Well, I also think it gives you a lot of credibility, right? You know, if you something as simple as like turning up in a Lambo, turning up with a nice watch, like it does give you a lot of credibility. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think especially because you're so young, people may not take you as seriously at times.
Yeah, no.
So I imagine, you know, being able to show your accomplishments obviously helps with your credibility. So how do you handle, you know, people not necessarily taking you seriously? And also you said that the oldest guy on your team is like more than 10 years older than you. So how do you handle that?
So it was when I was doing interviews, my first real interviews where I was like kind of getting resumes and stuff. Now I have someone on my team who handles it, kind of like a head of talent. But I remember doing an interview and a 42-year-old gave me his resume. I was like, holy fuck, I'm reading this guy's resume. I've never even like looked or thought to make a resume. I have the education level of a 16-year-old. Yeah. And it just made me realize that it's not the game, even with the spending money. Elon Musk right now, he could stop working. Or even I'll use a better example because I think Musk he's like too advanced. Iman Ghatzi, I think, is a great example. He now can stop working. His team will easily clear him probably 20 to 30 million a year. If he works, he'll probably be able to push that to 50, 60 because content and stuff. But think of that, the 30 million, we'll call it 300 days in the year. He can make pretty much 100 grand every day, $100,000 every day, maybe 50% gross margins on that. So he can net 50 grand a day doing nothing. Yeah, that's insane. While you're working your ass off, he can go and every single day buy one of these, spend and probably do the nicest dinner in Miami for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, go drop 10 grand on Louis Vuitton for some random girl, and still have 5 grand left over. Yeah. How fucked is that? And then with that 5 grand left over, he rents the nicest fucking apartment in this building for $150,000 a month. So you realize how much money is out there, I think, and it's very intriguing. And for me, that's my thing with spending, where I don't really look at it as that nice. I really do right now think that it's kind of like average in my eyes that I have a Lambo. I don't think it's that crazy because I'm not looking at myself and comparing myself to a 21-year-old. I really do want to beat a guy like Musk. I hate and what I love about those fucking old guys is I just know I have so much time on them. And I'm just thinking like on a trajectory, I have calculations right now to get to 100 million. And I literally calculate it in a spreadsheet every single week. I review it. I have some crazy, I'm a big spreadsheet guy. I highly recommend you get into Excel and spreadsheets and tracking your life. But I track my sleep, my income, my profit, and all that stuff. And it isn't a maybe for me. It's a when, and the when will be determined on the decisions I make. And that's why it's so easy for me to make good decisions, is because it's like, do I want to be worth like 100 million or 30 or like 20 million? I'd way rather the more.
So yeah, well, what's your timeline? Is it 100 million by 30? What's your timeline?
I think I don't fully have that. I know the numbers. I'm a big numbers guy. That's why I said I track in Excel. I don't know how I'm going to get to 100 million. I don't think it's going to be from cash flow. It's just going to take too long. I can cash flow pretty well, and I do pretty well, but it's not ideal to do it through cash flow. I think every guy pretty much I've seen go from 8 to 9 figures, it's been through exit and enterprise value. So Luca Net's like kind of a mentor to me. I really like that guy. He was the one explaining it to me. He's like, the first eight figures, first 10 mil you make, I think is from cash flow producing business. You take distributions, you take payroll, but I think the 8 figures to 9 figures will be from an exit. And I really want to get into the world of starting a software. I just don't want to do it yet. I want to wait till I have probably at least 10 million liquid. And at that point, I think it'll almost be like such a game for me, and I'll be so intelligent at that point. It's just, again, it'll be so hard for me to lose, or so hard for me to not win. And yeah, so that's my game right now. I'm trying to cash flow to 8 figures and 10 mil, heavy in crypto. I love crypto right now.
Well, I was going to ask you, like, what's your background with crypto? Because I know you mentioned NFTs.
Yeah. So crypto initially, man, I'm a big believer in the grass is greener where you water it. Everyone says like, oh, Bitcoin's pumping. Like, let me throw my life into fucking Bitcoin. Yeah. And for me, initially, that was me. This is 2021, around when I did the NFT. I was heavy in less the big coins, because I'm FOMOing. Bitcoins, I don't want a 2x, I want a 10x. I want to be rich, I want a fucking Lambo. And I went into alts. I put probably $350,000 in alts. Specifically, I had a few guys in the crypto world. I just came back from Dubai with like 10 crypto fucking multi-millionaires, so that didn't help. And yeah, they gave me a list of alts. I remember just blind trusting it.
Wow.
And they didn't fuck me. Like, these were huge coins, huge market caps, in the 8 9 figures.
Like, which coins did you put in? I
remember I definitely was in Luna, but I sold before it went crazy.
You were in Luna?
I sold before it went crazy. I know I was in Tron. I don't remember all the names now. I think Snow or like
Snow.
Snow or like Alpha or something. Just weird ass fucking coins, dude.
None of like the more credible ones like ETH or ADA.
No, I stayed away from ETH, Bitcoin specifically. I stayed away from all the ones kind of Cardano I was in.
You're in ADA.
And this is the thing that I fucked up on. I did it at like 65 Bitcoin. So
you put 350 grand at the top of the market.
Yeah. And I realized that the market isn't something you try to beat. I think the market is something that you consistently put money in things that you think will work long term.
Yes.
And I don't try to time it anymore. So now my whole thing is like cash in crypto. I'm really against stocks and real estate. Initially, I think
you're against stocks and real estate. Why?
Yeah. When I was in my path to $1 million, I think I was like, oh yeah, like I have 200 grand. Let me put 50 grand in stocks, my 8%. It's just not how I think now. I look at crypto less as an investment and more as a good place to literally store cash, to store value. And I mean, I think people would agree with that. I was telling you the story. I was in London. This random girl fucking stole my ledger.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, this bitch. She just like, but she didn't know. I could just go home. I remember she texted me. She's like, I hope you didn't need it. It got stolen. I'm like, bitch. And
so wait, some random woman stole your ledger?
Yeah, I was like half dating this girl.
How much did you have on it?
I mean, at least a few 6 figures. Probably like at the time, 260, 270.
And so were you able to get a seed phrase?
Yeah, thank God.
And
anyone watching this, fucking, if you have cold storage, keep that seed phrase, keep the seed phrase safe. Take it from me. Flying home was scary, man, because I went 2 weeks not knowing. Because like there was a side of me that said she could have cracked into it. I was like, man, if this fucking girl cracked into that shit and somehow got it, that would have pissed me off a lot.
Yeah, because it's only secured by a pin.
But I researched it. If it gets hit 3 times, so they try 3 times, it resets.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got home, typed in the seed phrase, bought 2 new ones, good deal, and I have a really good safe setup now. I talked to some guys. Now I'm better.
I saw actually you have a huge safe upstairs.
I'm a big safe guy.
Is it bolted?
Yeah, big safe guy, and big gun guy. No one get any ideas.
Oh, you have guns here as well?
I've guns everywhere.
That's good. That's crazy.
I have a car, desk, room, 1 bathroom.
Have you ever been in a position where you have to use the gun?
No, thank God. But I have definitely had some scares. I have any door that opens my apartment, there's a ring in every room. I have office and bedroom. Because I don't really fuck around. I had a stalker a year ago. This weird ass fucking guy.
You had a stalker?
Yeah, he pulled up to my apartment twice. It was just weird. So I don't fuck around with safety, especially the space I'm in. Just
Yeah.
I'm a very robbable person.
Yeah. Are you always armed?
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Because in Florida you can. You just have to.
Yeah,
you
I
can
mean,
still carry.
anytime every time I'm out and about, I'll always have a gun. Yeah, just don't have any fucking ideas.
Don't get any ideas.
My
I have a
beautiful-
safe and I have a
My
gun.
beautiful Tiffany, I just got this thing. But yeah, I mean, that's my big thing. And I was even saying the whole grass is not greener in crypto. The grass isn't greener in this random thing. Like I was even talking to my CEO in one of my businesses today. He brought up trying to do this completely different thing. It's similar. Some competitors doing it. I'm like, dude, what's the goal? We're trying to make money. And what do we need to do that? Fulfill with our customers. And it's super simple. We're already making a ton of money. Let's just do it 10x.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is it's so easy to look at the one thing someone else is doing. And like look at Tate. Everyone can be like, oh my God, Tate's making so much money from real world. Let me create my own real. There's so many little issues that you don't see behind the scenes that he had to overcome, that I've overcome, that any entrepreneurs overcame.
Well, what are your hardest challenges?
I mean, I think anyone's hardest challenge ultimately is themselves and their focus. Because if you're super disciplined and you're just a beast, it's so hard to lose.
So, so you say discipline would be like the most important trait for success. Discipline.
Right now, I always tell my team, like I'll fuck with them a bit to show them how fucking much of a demon I am. I could go fuck off. I've set up now over the last 12 months such a good leadership team. My e-com site I have ahead, and now we're about to start acquiring stores actually. And the stores that I'm bringing in, I'm not even gonna have to run. I have a media buyer full time. I have a manager full time, fulfillment teams full time. So it's come to the point now, customer support team, that I have managers on every business. And I told this to one of my buddies. He has a pretty big business as well. He's in a venture capital world, a bit different, but he has a startup. And I said, I think once you're past 7 figures in revenue, you need to be able to close your eyes, have an idea, and have someone who can make it happen. Because when you have that, you're going to be in such a higher leverage situation than someone who's in your exact same spot, but he's in the day-to-day, stressing out, finishing the document, doing all this dumb shit.
Right.
A guy like Musk, he fucking went, Twitter's up, I think, like 25% since he acquired it. The guy made $12 billion and he probably didn't do anything. He probably walked in, I think he brought the toilet in or the sink.
The sink. It was a sink.
He walked into Twitter headquarters. He took a flight on his jet. He walked in, dropped the sink, probably had 3 or 4 meetings.
Fired everyone.
Made 5 hours of decisions, and he made $12 billion. Like, do you want to make $2 billion an hour? Because I do.
Yeah.
And that's my perspective is the grass is green where you water it. Really focus on doing what you do really fucking well.
Right.
And you need to decide if you're in a good avenue or not. That's the one caveat. Where if you're in a bad avenue, like if you're a fucking garbage man, like you're not going to be rich. Like it's just very hard. But as long as your time isn't tied to you making money, you're good. I think that's the biggest factor.
Yeah. And you mentioned, you kind of got wrecked in crypto.
Oh yeah, I got
you went
fucked.
in.
The alts, I think I lost 80%, and I remember just like being like, fuck, I think it was like 40 grand, and I got out.
Yeah, that's crazy. So are you going back in? Like, do you have a plan for the next bull
So now
run?
just Bitcoin.
Just Bitcoin, smart. That's
So my thing is now I don't care to make a lot of money from it. I want to get to like, in my eyes, Bitcoin will hit 100K.
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
like, do I want my money in cash and watching that happen? Or would I rather, I'm pretty much 50-50. Would I rather be 50% in crypto and know that it'll hit 100K? So my perspective is I don't want to be in it too hard because I want to be able to, if it drops to 5K, 4K, I want to be able to eat that shit and laugh and giggle, buy more.
You won't ever. No,
yeah.
you won't. Seeing like a drop like that.
No, but
I
know I wouldn't sell because that's my whole perspective right now is I'm prepared for it to get wrecked.
Okay.
Because I think inevitably within 10 years it'll be at 100K. And that's going to be my buyout of probably like 75-80%. But who knows?
That's very conservative, I'd say, though. In 10 years, 100K.
One thing I've been also telling this to my team a lot, I think it's really comforting. And I'm like, you don't need to have the plan for everything. And I think that's okay. And I love that. Just the idea of like, you don't need the full big picture plan yet. And that's okay. And that's my thing with investing too. It's like, dude, if we get alien invasion tomorrow, everything's going to crypto, I'm running, dude. But at the same time, if the US announces a fucking full ban on crypto, I'd have to rethink the decision, Hopefully that doesn't happen.
Well, at least you're completely diversified. You have a real business.
And I always tell people, like, I really am not scared now of losing everything. I think getting over that crumble is like really nice, right? Right when you get over the idea of like, what would happen if I lose everything? I think that's the ultimate confidence in yourself.
If you lost everything, how would you start again?
I think instantly, if I right now lost everything, I'd outreach probably 100 businesses that are similar to what I did. And I would just say, let me come in and just be your like operator. Like, let me operate it. I'll say like, don't pay me. Give me 30 days. If I don't make you an extra like 100K, like fire me. And then I would just come in. They would like, holy shit, this kid's a genius.
Yeah.
I'd probably do that. Then I would go to like fractional consulting for each of them. And then when I have like a mil or two, I'd probably start a startup. Startups and exiting a business is the move. Like if I could reset right now, I like what I did because it produced a lot of cash flow. It let me live a really fun life. But like when you know in a few years you can sell a business for 100 mil and like, holy shit, if I just hustle for 3 years straight, I could sell for 100 mil. You get a sense of like motivation and discipline like no other. And I think part of wanting to work hard is enjoying what you do and enjoying the outlook of where you're going to get to. And that's why I love the idea of starting a big business because like Becker and Hyros is a good example. I think they were only at like, I want to say it was like 12 mil ARR. It wasn't that insane, but they're selling for a 10x multiple. They're selling for 120 mil. This guy 35, like fuck all the nonsense, business model, YouTube, like 35 years old, 120 mil into his bank account. Pay his taxes, 100 mil left over, whatever. Like that's fun. That's nice. To be 35 with 100 mil. And then you start breaking it down and realizing like, wait, it's not that difficult. You just have to learn how to get a business to like 10 mil a year in revenue, maybe net 30, 40%, and just do it with a business that has major enterprise value. So definitely figuring out how to produce the cash flow is the harder part. That's why I like that I learned that first. It's difficult. No one funded me. No one gave me money. I had sketchy points. When that crypto fucking thing happened, I was like, fuck. But yeah.
What's your exit strategy? Do
So
you want to sell the companies?
Right now, the reason I'm in mentoring and social media is because I like the idea of having an audience. I think it's one of the highest lever things. There's 4 keys. Once he says this, media, time, money. There's one more. Media, time, money, and 50 people. So all 4 of those levers are levers of leverage. You know, you can be the analogy he gives is you could be super skinny and weak, but you have a super long pole, and you can pull that pole, and it's just as hard for you than someone with a super short pole that's super strong. Because he's with this, like, you know, the whole idea of like bullies in Egypt, how they built the pyramid. Using leverage is how people do amazing things. And for me, media and having a social media presence, it's huge. Look at Tate. I mean, I don't know what his whole situation is, but that real world show is printing.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know what everyone else's goal is, and mine's to make a lot of money. I'm trying to make it really easy for a tap. That's one thing. I really don't live life stressful anymore because I'm doing the things now that makes life so easy and simple to where like, it's like getting rich is almost just like a cherry on top.
I'm curious, do people from home now try and reach out to you?
Yeah, I don't talk to many people. Like, it's the same thing with like leaving. I don't leave much. I hate like even lunches and stuff. It's only when I really like meeting you guys. I want to meet you guys, so we'll do a lunch. But I really do hate that shit. Love you guys. I hate the idea of doing anything like out of my work. It's just not enjoyable. I'm like a very introverted person when it comes to that. You know, I'll do a little fucking meet, networking events, but yeah, I don't talk to many of them. Again, it just doesn't relate too well. Yeah, I mean, I've never done like I've never been. I'm not a big like social-esque guy. I have a very small circle.
So how can people get in touch with you if they want to work with you, follow you? Then what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I always tell people easiest like hub of social media that could lead you everywhere. TikTok, Make Money with Jacob. Just easy to remember. You can see my YouTube and link in bio, find my Instagram. But yeah, IG, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, I do them all.
Jacob, thank you so much for coming on. It's been so fascinating. I said at the beginning of the conversation, I just can't believe what a different world we're in. You know, with all these 16 to 23-year-olds making millions. I don't mean 1 million, I mean like 5, 6 million. It's truly insane.
It's infinite.
It's infinite. It literally is. And, you know, God knows where you guys will be in like 10 years. So that's why, you know, I really enjoyed these conversations and really appreciate you coming on. So, you know, learn so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe as we have a lot more of this business content happening very soon.